from save the dates to invitations. I think this is going to be a good one.
I hope so.
So, paper goods, stationery, it's something that a lot of times gets pushed off towards the end. It's something that, again, it's so important because, it's one of the first impressions of your wedding to your guests in many ways.
Yeah, for sure. You've been planning. You've seen a million pictures of what you think your wedding's going to look like, but your guests don't have any idea. So this will give them a little glimpse into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So excited to kind of dive into this. So as far as save the dates, why do them?
So it's definitely like a newer thing to be doing save the dates. Now pretty much everyone does them unless you're planning on maybe like a shorter timetable, say 6 months or less. But it's just a great way to kind of give your guests a glimpse into, your engagement and what the basic wedding plans are going to be for wedding day. So it's a good way to kind of get it on your guest's calendar that this is your wedding weekend, especially if you have a lot of people who are traveling in from out of town, or your guests maybe make plans far in advance. You want to make sure that your date's kind of top of mind for them. So it's just a good kind of official way to say we've chosen the date and this is city, state that it's going to be in. We hope you can join us. It's not an official invitation. Most people don't RSVP, but it's just a good kind of, hey, we're getting married. This is some things to think about.
Yeah, and it's fun too because you can really show your personality in these things. We've seen a lot of fun ones come across.
For sure, there's so many fun ways to do it, and that's the great thing about a save the date is it's not official, so it doesn't have to match the full wedding scheme. It doesn't have to match your invitation suite. It can be really fun. You could do magnets or postcards, photo strips, whatever is kind of true to you guys.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to show off your engagement pictures. So whether it's pictures from your actual engagement or pictures from your engagement session, it's just a good way to kind of show off who you guys are as a couple.
Yeah, and just from a practicality standpoint too, it's good to give people a lot of lead time on when the wedding's going to be because everyone's got their own schedules and calendars and everything.
Yeah, I agree. It's just nice to kind of put it on there for people to know what's to come. And yes, your VIPs know the date, but isn't it fun to have something kind of official in your first piece of wedding stationery to go in the fridge?
Absolutely. So with the save the dates, when do you do them?
So you want to get them out by 6 to 8 months out. Whoops.
6 to 8 weeks. Wow, that's and then the invitations after.
Exactly. 6 to 8 months before wedding day. If you're planning a destination wedding, you could get them out a little bit earlier if you had time and wanted to, just to give people even more of a leeway, especially if they have to book hotels and flights and things like that. But by that 6 month point is kind of that deadline to get those save the dates out. So if you're planning to do an engagement session and you want to include that on your save the date, make sure you plan to do that, 4 to 6 weeks before you're hoping to send out those save the dates.
Got it. Okay. Well, same question for invitations. Why do an invitation at all? Why can't we just Snapchat each other and say, hey, what up? Can you be here on this date?
Well, a wedding is pretty formal usually, whether it's a casual event or not. It's still a more formal event. It's a pretty big life thing, I think.
It is.
So an invitation is a great way to kind of set that formality level. And again, even if you're having a casual wedding, there's lots of really fun, cool ways to do invitations. Or if you're having a more traditional formal wedding, you can go with a more traditional route of an invitation. But you really want to make sure that gives all that information about your wedding day. So your invitation is going to be more than just the invitation itself. It's going to be that full suite of information that's sent out. So the invitation itself, which will have all the details about the ceremony, who's the host of the wedding, your names, of course, time, date, place, and then you'll have your RSVP card, which is a super important piece.
Mm-hmm.
That way people can actually respond back and let you know if they're coming, who's coming, how many guests are coming, so that helps you know how many seats to reserve, how many meals to reserve. And if you're doing a seated dinner, then you want to make sure that you have that on there as well.
Gotcha.
And then there can be a lot of other little pieces that you add into that invitation suite. So if you're having your ceremony and reception at 2 different places, then a reception card can be a great addition. It doesn't have to be, but that can be a nice, kind of card letting people know what time the reception is and where it is, any kind of details about parking. Detail cards can be another great piece to add in there. So that could be things about your wedding website, any kind of other weekend events going on, hotel information. You can do direction cards. There's a lot of extra pieces that you can add into that invitation to kind of make it easier on your guests. I know you will have a lot of this information on your website too, but it's just nice to have something printed that you can bring with you to the wedding.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you all that information about what to expect.
So no Evites.
You can do an Evite, but I would recommend that if you can find it in the budget to do invitations, that you really go that way, because this is a super formal event, and it's not a birthday party, and you want to kind of set those expectations with your guests, because you certainly don't want people RSVPing and then canceling a couple of days before, because it didn't seem like a super formal event.
Right.
Because you'll be paying for their meal whether they come or not,
right.
And their chairs and their flowers and all those things. So I would definitely highly recommend having a full invitation, and even if you do online RSVPs, I would still recommend having an RSVP card as well.
Yep.
Because again, it's just good to have that option, and grandma probably isn't going to go online and RSVP. So I think having something hard and fast definitely helps to kind of reduce those last minute cancellations.
Sure, absolutely. So then, kind of going back to the save the dates, what should those look like?
Sure. So save the dates can look like a variety of different things. The most important thing with save the dates is that they communicate a little bit of information. So you want to have your names. First and last name is great if you don't think that, maybe not everybody knows both of you. And then you want to have the city and state of where you guys are getting married and the date that you guys are getting married. I would also recommend that you have like a link to your website, so you have that already created before your save the date goes out. That way people can go online and kind of bookmark that page and start thinking about booking flights, start booking hotels. So that can be, just like easy information. Even if you don't already have it on the website, people will kind of be checking back as they get ready to plan for actually coming to your wedding.
Yeah,
and then from there, pictures, whatever you want.
And pro tip for procrastinator myself, convince your guests to book the room blocks in advance and not wait till the last minute.
That's right. We talked about that on a past podcast.
I know, but
so go back and listen.
It was a painful experience. It was very, Anyways, that's why I was reiterating it. So, okay, perfect. So then, as far as, invitations, when do you need to start thinking about finding your paper goods, your stationery provider? When do you need to start thinking about making an ultimate decision and then ultimately sending those out?
So you're going to want to send your invitations out in that 6 to 8 week period before the wedding day. So again, you can send them out a little bit earlier if you would like. I would say definitely no earlier than 10 to 12 weeks. I know people get anxious and they want to start finding out those numbers, but again, you don't want it to sit on someone's desk for weeks and then forget to respond because you gave them too much time. So 6 to 8 weeks out for that kind of formal invitation. So then you have to have them in advance, depending on how you're going to go about, ordering them. So if you're going to do calligraphy, then you're going to need to talk to your calligrapher. Typically they need, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to kind of work on your list, depending on how big your list is and how big the company is you're hiring. If you're printing it yourself, then that time, obviously reduces on the envelopes. And then as far as ordering the invitations themselves, if you're ordering from like an online site, typically they have a quicker turnaround. So you might be able to get it in, 2 to 4 weeks. So you can kind of add that on top of when you're hoping to send it out. And then if you're ordering from a traditional invitation company, it depends on what type of printing services you're using. So that can make a big difference on what their turnaround times are. So for that, I would suggest actually sitting down and meeting with, a stationery company, anywhere from 6 to 8 months out. Wow. That way you go ahead and find out, if you have your heart set on a specific kind of paper or printing process, you want to make sure you allot that time. So you may not pick everything and finalize it, but at least get an idea of what their timelines look like and make sure that you are kind of lining up with that timeline. Because you definitely don't want to have your heart set on something and then not be able to get it in the end just because of procrastination. You
Right.
know a little bit about that, I think.
Yep. So especially like if you're ordering the stationery and then you're going to send it off to the calligrapher, that adds to that timeline because
Right.
they're the last step there.
Right.
Well, and kind of piggybacking off of that. So as far as like assembling an invitation, I would have no idea where to begin. In fact, the fact that you just told me that there could be up to 7 different pieces to an invitation, all I can think of is the episode of Friends where Joey pulls out the tissue and he's like, "It's okay, I've got a tissue. It
Back
came
to
with
the
my
Friends
invitation."
thing.
I'm a '90s kid, I guess. So, like, how would a couple know how to do that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So kind of basic idea is that you stack from biggest to smallest. So your invitation is usually going to always be in the back, and then you're going to build up from there. And then you're going to want everything to be going the same direction, font all reading the same way. And then another big tip is to make sure with your RSVP cards that you number them on the back, because you want to make sure that inevitably someone's going to have terrible handwriting, looking at you.
Yeah.
Or, someone's going to fill out that they have 2 people coming and forget to put their names. So if you put a small number on the back in pencil, no one of your guests will really notice it, but it'll help you to stay really organized and make sure when those RSVPs come back and you're tracking them, that you know what's going on. So you want to make sure you number that RSVP card. You want to make sure you put a stamp on that RSVP envelope so that your guests can easily return it. And then you'll stack them, biggest to smallest, and then load them into your envelope.
Should you include a stamp?
On the RSVP card?
Yes.
Yes, for sure. And then, there's the option of having an inner envelope and an outer envelope. So if you do go with 2 envelopes, you'll load everything into your inner envelope, and then you'll load the inner envelope into the outer envelope. So there's lots and lots of pieces. Now, something to keep in mind, too, is that the more pieces you have, the higher the postage is going to be. So make sure you take a full invitation suite to the post office. If you have more than an invitation and an RSVP card, you're most likely going to be more than just kind of standard stamps. So you want to make sure you kind of get that weighed before you order any stamps or send it and get everything returned to you. Another thing to think about is if you have like a unusual shape, if you have a square invitation or something like that, that can also sometimes be extra postage. So keep that in mind for both your RSVP and for your invitation. Make sure you have the right postage on there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And actually, just another question, like with the RSVP cards, and I know like I've seen a lot of them come back for your planning business,
Yeah.
and sometimes people will add additional guests that weren't necessarily invited. What's the etiquette there as the couple? Not obviously they've broken etiquette by inviting additional people.
They've definitely broken etiquette. It's definitely a tricky situation. You see it a lot with adding a guest or adding kids. So, it's kind of up to you as a couple. How do you really want to feel about it? Like, are you really on a tight budget and really on a tight amount of space, or you just set the rules and you want to hold true to your guns? Then you call them and you explain, look, we have a limited number of seats. That's why we weren't able to give you a guest or invite your kids. And, we would love to do that. We hope you can still come, but unfortunately, we really do only have 1 seat for you, or 2 seats, or however many it is. Yeah. So, sometimes couples at that point are just kind of like, it is what it is, and that's fine too. Some ways you can kind of help to, stop that on the front end. Just make sure that when you're addressing the invitation, you're writing it by name. You don't say "and family" or anything like that. That kind of leaves it open.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then on the actual RSVP card, if you write, total number of guests, you usually have a blank there, and people can fill that in. You can kind of add something on the back end that says "of blank" and fill in that second blank, so that it's of 2 people or of 4 people or however many were actually included. I'm not going to say that's always going to stop people either, but
right.
There's little things like that you can do to kind of help keep those numbers and keep that in check.
Have you ever seen anything crazier than someone just adding additional guests or and family that you're willing to share?
No, just adding additional guests. We had people who've added a couple of guests. So I think
it's a bold move.
It's a bold move, yeah. A couple of kids.
Yeah.
So every person adds up.
Your
so.
Uber driver.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I think keeping that in mind, and making sure you give yourself enough time on the RSVP date. You want that RSVP date to happen, 4 weeks before the wedding, or whenever final count is going to be due for rentals, bakery, food. So you want to kind of look at those contracts and make sure your RSVP date is on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
And I give yourself a little leeway because you're not going to hear back from everybody.
Right.
So you're going to have to call them and text them or Snapchat them and get them to find out if they're actually coming or not.
Gotcha. Okay, well that's perfect. That's amazing, and it sounds like there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to your invitations and your save the dates.
That's right.
So key takeaways for our couples off the back of looking for their stationery and their save the dates invitations. What are their marching orders?
So I think first steps is to go and look at inspiration. I know we have some great inspiration on Bustld, so come over and check that out. But start to kind of get an idea of what styles you like, and then decide if you're going to, include pictures on your save the dates. If so, make sure you plan in advance for an engagement session. And then when it comes to invitation, decide if you're going to order online or you're going to go to a traditional stationery, and really build a timeline for yourself so you make sure that you're getting everything done in time. And you're not kind of leaving anything on the table when it comes to planning.